But we're going to go there and we're going to get our message for today. And this is something that I had thought about. We have had a really good week in prayer and fasting. We spent time here in the sanctuary every evening from 6 to 7 o'clock. A few of us came here and we prayed and we just walked the whole sanctuary, and we asked that God would bless everything that we do in here. And it's been a great week. And now we get to end last week and start this week with spending time together in God's presence and in God's house. And also celebrating the fact that it's Kenny's birthday. Whoa! It's his 27th birthday today. And so make sure you tell him happy birthday and all that stuff. Or even better, just go support the business, and then he'll know that you really are happy for his birthday. So that's what we're going to do. Nehemiah chapter 4. If you're there, say amen. Amen. If you're not there, say wait a minute. Okay, see, you're worried now. You don't know where you're going. Are you really not there? Okay. Well, we're going to keep going. Chapter 4, we're going to start at verse number 1. But it so happened when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, that he was furious and very indignant and mocked the Jews. And he spoke before his brethren, the army of Samaria, and said, "What are these feeble Jews doing? Will they fortify themselves? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they complete it in a day? Will they revive the stones from the heaps of rubbish, stones that are buried?" I want to pause right there and just tell you that there's somebody always wanting to stop what you're trying to rebuild. The word revive is a very powerful word. It's a word that I think God is trying to show everybody in His church today, and we're trying to walk away from it. We like church to be what we want it to be. We want it to not pick on us. We want it to not make us feel bad. We want to come in and get a good, healthy, happy dose of "you're the man" and then walk away. But that's not what church is. God wants to rebuild and revive something in your life that maybe has gone somewhere. And every time that starts happening, there's always somebody who gets mad at you and wants to say something negative about it. Verse 3, "Now Tobiah the Ammonite was beside him and said, 'Whatever they build, if even a fox goes on it, he will break it down on their stone wall. Hear, O God, for we are despised. Turn their reproach on their own heads and give them as plunder to the land of captivity. Do not cover their iniquity. Do not let their sin be blotted out from before you, for they have provoked you to anger before the builders.'" So he is calling on God to defend his people. He knows that God is so merciful and so gracious that he has to say, "Do not cover their iniquity." Because they are not your people. They are here to hurt your people. They are here to come against your people and stop what you're doing. But I know the God that you are is so grace-filled that even the worst of the worst, you would forgive and you would cover them if they would seek you. Verse 6, "So we built the wall, and the entire wall was joined together up to half its height, for the people had a mind to work. Now it happened when Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs, the Ammonites, the Ashdodites heard the walls of Jerusalem were being restored, that the gaps were being closed, they became very angry indeed." Oh no, they just didn't build that wall. "And all of them conspired together, come and attack Jerusalem and create confusion." That's always what the enemy wants to do, is create confusion and conquer you right where you're trying to do your best work. "Nevertheless, we made our prayer to God, and because of them we set watch against them day and night. Then Judah said, 'The strength of the laborers is failing, and there is so much rubbish that we're not able to build the wall.' And our adversaries said, 'They will come neither know nor see anything till we come into their midst and kill them, so they can cause the work to cease.' And it was when the Jews who dwelt near from them came, and they told us 10 times, 'From wherever place you turn, they will be upon us.' Therefore I positioned my men for the lowest parts of the wall, and at the openings I set the people according to their families with their swords, their spears, and their bows." Now I need you to understand what he's telling us is that they're building the wall, but they're building it with their weapons. They're ready for their fight. They're ready for the battle that they know is going to come their way. Verse 14, "And I looked and arose and saw the nobles to the leaders and the rest of the people. 'Do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, great and awesome. And fight for your brethren, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your house.' And it happened when our enemies heard that it was known to us that the God that God had brought their plot to nothing, and all of us returned to the wall, everyone to his work. So it was from that time on that half my servants worked at construction, while the other half held spears, shields, and bows, and wore armor, and the leaders were behind all the house of Judah. That was a little bit of reading, but hopefully we're going to make it make sense in just a second. I want to talk to you about a very easy subject, but I think it's something that we overlook a lot of times. And I want to talk to you about doing whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. And the statement I want to start off and give to you, if you like to write notes, this is a good one, but I want to give you this. Faith is formed in the fight. We think that faith is something that's going to stop our fight, that if we are a people of faith, that we won't enter the fight, but that's not the case. Faith is what is formed in the middle of your fight. When you don't know how things are going to go, when you don't know what is going to happen, when all you can do is rest in your God and know that he is doing something good in your life and in your circumstances. I found myself many times in my life wondering what's next, wondering where do I go from here, wondering is everything going to be okay? Will we make it out of this in one piece? Will we get past this situation that we're facing in our lives? How will we make it through this? Me and Chastity were 20 years old when we got married. I was 20 years old. She's an older lady, so she's not in here, I don't think, so I can say that. Don't tell her what I said. We've been together for a long time to this point. We've been together for 16 years, but we've just celebrated our 15th wedding anniversary in November, and so we've spent a lot of time together. And we spent a lot of time fussing and arguing and doing things that normal people do, and I often tell her that the day we got married was the best day of her life. You weren't supposed to laugh at that, but I appreciate your honesty. The journey we have been on, however, has not been the best journey of anybody's life. But it's because of two things that we can make it through anything that we face. One, because we have everything founded on the truth of God's Word. We have it founded on the facts that God has called us together, that he's called us out of the lifestyle that we used to be, and that he's called us away from the things that used to pull us away from God. You see, I didn't go to church, and I didn't grow up like these guys right here. Okay? So now for the rest of the service, you can pay attention to the teenage guys right here in the middle, because I didn't get to grow up like them. I didn't have parents that brought me to church. And it's not because of I had a single mother. She didn't have the time to do it. She worked so much just to make sure we had what we had. She couldn't deal with everything that she had to do, so we were free to make our own decisions, and we didn't have somebody bring us to church. We didn't have somebody go and get in God's presence for us and shout our names out to God and say, watch Jonathan, and watch Tim, and watch Josh, and watch my babies, and keep them protected, and keep them covered. We didn't have nobody caring enough to bring us into a church. Not that they didn't care, but that it wasn't a part of what we did. It wasn't our lifestyle. I know every day that my mother cared and loved for all of us. But this was just an aspect of life that we didn't have. These guys have that right here. My children have that. The kids that you see in churches have that. But because of an unsure foundation, I had an unsure development. And it wasn't until Chastity and I were married that things changed in my life and I started going to church. And then after that, I thought everything would be good because I had been told, and being ignorant to the Bible, I had been told that the minute you give yourself to Jesus, everything gets better. All your issues kind of just float away. And what I found is that that's not only not true, it's actually the opposite. When you give yourself to Jesus, you now become an enemy of Satan. I know that's we don't talk about him because that's not church proper cultural anymore. We don't do that, but I do. And so we wake him up to the fact that now we're not taking it from you no more. We know the God that we were created to serve. We know the God that we are supposed to honor. And now I'm going to do that. I'm going to live my life for that God every single day of my life. And at times, the walls of our own safety and security in our own family and in our own life had been burnt down to the ground by people we loved, by people we trusted, by people we never thought it would come from. The people that we thought had our best interest in heart, those were the people that started tearing down the walls of our security, the walls of our safety. Chastity at 16 had to bury her father. 16 years old. Her dad died. She had to bury her father. Nobody to walk her down the aisle. In our case, we got married in somebody's living room, so nobody to walk her down the hallway. No grandfather to hold her children. The parents and the things that everybody, from what I understand, every young girl envisions their marriage and their life and their family and all the stuff that she's seen her whole life gone at 16 years old, and now she had to move on and she had to figure it out now. And what she told me is that the worst part of that whole thing was not so much the funeral, it was not so much any of that. The worst part of her whole trip to bury her father was that she was in Florida and he was in South Bend, and on the way back home, everybody else was fine and her world was changed, and she had to sit on the plane and she had to listen to people laugh and she had to listen to people be happy, and she knew right then that her world would never be the same. And she said that was the hardest part, and some of the wall was torn down that day. And we got married and we had children, and Elijah was born, and he was real jaundiced. He was real yellow. He had issues, and so it wasn't like just put him in the sun and he'll be okay. It was no, he had to be kept in the hospital for several weeks, and they couldn't keep Chastity, so they discharged her, and she was supposed to go home, but the nurse was a friend of hers, and so she let her stay in and sleep in the nurse's station. And for weeks she stayed in there, and she slept in a chair in the nurse's station while the baby was put in a neon box with light shining on him and his goggles over his face so that it doesn't hurt his vision. And over again she would cry herself to sleep in a chair in the nurse's station, because this is not what she planned when she went to the hospital to have the baby. And I know that's something so easy. And I know that you might have some stories that are way worse than that. And I do too, but I'm giving you some easy ones right now. We'll get into some tougher stuff maybe later on. But that's what she dealt with every night. Cried herself to sleep. What about for the things that get worse than that? What about for the people that their baby's not just in an incubator box? What about for the people that cry themselves to sleep for years because of the things that they've been through? What are you going to do about it? Whatever it takes. And some of the wall was torn down. We moved to Orlando. We took a position in Orlando. We found out in Orlando before we came here that Chastity had a heart condition. She was born with it. She was 30-something years old at the time. I don't know how old I know how she is now, but I don't know when she found out. So I think she was about 33, 4-ish. Mind business. But she found out she had a heart condition. Your heart, your aorta, I guess, has 3 valves, and hers only has 2, so it's not working the way it should work. And so the doctor told her she should be fine, but eventually a lot of people that have this condition will end up having open heart surgery. And she began to get so afraid of having open heart surgery that she would just sit in the room and she would cry because she didn't want to have to go through that. And she didn't know how we were going to get through it. And I said, it doesn't matter. We'll work it out. We'll get through it. I will stand by you the whole time. I don't know how we're going to get through it, but we're going to do whatever it takes to get you through this, to get us through this. We're going to be here together. We're going to fight every battle together. And I promise you that we will do whatever it takes to get past this issue in your life. But still, some more of the wall was torn down. And there's a few examples of some fights that we've seen. And those are some of the easier fights. I could give you some of the worst ones, but it's not really necessary. If you let it, the fight will destroy your faith. It will beat you down until you do not feel like you can stand again. It will beat you down until the strongest person that you've ever been is now forced to just live like a small child or a baby yourself because you can't cope with the issues that life has thrown at you, and your walls are being torn down and the enemy is coming in and there is fire and there is issues, and all you do is try to cry out to God and say, God, why is this happening? Why am I going through this? Why am I walking through this? Only to feel that God is not listening to your cries. But I assure you, God is. Amen. It is in those dark seasons that God builds our faith. Amen. It is in those dark seasons that we don't get the answers. I can't tell you why everything that you've walked through has happened to you. I wish I could. I wish I could take every bit of your pain away. I wish I could explain every loss, every trial, every struggle, every issue, but I can't. But what I can tell you is that the Bible is God's written word to his people. And the Bible says that God will never leave you. God will never forsake you. And so if you feel alone, it's not because God has walked away from you. It's because we walk away from God. And that's how our walls get torn down. Your faith is formed in the fight. How could this happen? How did we get here? You know, the Japanese attack on Hawaii is recorded as one of the most unlikely things in the world. They had a 1 in a million chance of being successful. Besides having more powerful defenses than any other post, it was protected by distance. There was no way that they should have been able to attack Pearl Harbor, but they did. No one expected a terror attack on the U.S. before 9/11. But now we live every day afraid that somebody's going to come over here and blow something else up or knock something else down. You're never more vulnerable than when you think you're at your strongest. The enemy is most effective when you think you're safe. Yeah. I've got it going on. I've seen more issues since I've given my life to Jesus than I've seen before that. But that's because God is for me and the enemy is against me. And when you don't stand for God, you will fall to every trap that the enemy sets for you. And you will, the Bible says that you get snared up like a bird in the trap of the fowler. And that what that symbolizes to me is a bird just walking around and he steps in the wrong place. And the snare grabs hold of his leg, and the bird tries to fly, and the bird tries to get away, and the bird tries to do anything it can to get out of the trap, but it cannot be released from the trap. The only thing that will free the bird is if it calls on somebody who can undo the trap that it's caught in. And that's what we have to do. We have to undo the trap that we find ourselves caught in. The enemy is most effective when you think you're most safe. So it is in our life. We face an enemy that knows who he's fighting. And he's an effective enemy because of two things. We don't think there's an enemy, number one. And we don't know enough about the enemy to be able to fight back. In the movie The Usual Suspects, Kevin Spacey's character says this: the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world that he doesn't exist. He's convincing people that it's just bad people and good people. Some people are born bad. Some people are born good. Some people just will be a bad person. Some people will live to do good things. Some people will build hope. Some people will just tear down and hurt people. There's all these things that we think that science made you this way, or your lifestyle made you this way, or your parents made you this way, or what you went through made you this way. Whatever the case may be, there's always a way out. You will never go into something that is a dead end. God will always provide an escape. He will always provide an exit. He will always provide a way out. He always has for me. He always will for you. But the problem is we lose to the enemy because he's convinced the world that he's not real. And so we've given up. We've given up. Society has given up on the red, pointy-tailed devil from the pitchfork, from the cartoons. He's not real. He's not something that really attacks us. But believe it or not, he might not be a little red ponytail dude with a pitchfork, but there is a real Satan. There is a real devil, a real enemy who cannot stand the fact that you're sitting in a church right now. And you don't even mind so much that you come to church. It's when you start to live the church that he gets real agitated. Yeah. And once you start to live Jesus, then he starts to come against you because now you're infringing on territory that is his. You see, the Bible calls Satan the god of this world. He is the god of this world. When Satan tempted Jesus, he said, look around. I'll give you everything you see. And Jesus didn't look at him and say, you can't give this to me. It's already mine. I already created it. This is mine. Jesus knew that his authority was to rule the earth because the earth had fallen. Yeah. And it was now his. Jesus came back to change our circumstance. Jesus came back to give us hope, to give us peace, to give us a future, to give us a new outlook on things that are going on. There is a very real enemy, and his attack is in three parts almost every time. First of all, he hits you with doubt, like he did to Eve. The very first sin that entered this world, the fall of man, all started with doubt in Genesis chapter 3, when the serpent goes up to Eve and said, did God really tell you not to eat the fruit? Did God really tell you that you will die? Surely God's not really going to kill you just because you're hungry. And so what he does is he convinces us to not look at everything that we can have and focus on the little thing that we shouldn't have. And when you focus on what you can't have, you want it so much more. My mother used to tell us back in the day, you better be home in the yard before the street lights come on. Because that was back when kids could just run around all over the town and city and nobody wasn't worried about the white candy van picking up your kids and stuff. So, you know, we would be all over the place on our bikes. We rode all over town and we'd be gunning it to get home. My brother is here and he can tell you, we'd be pedaling all up. I remember diving into the yard just to make sure. She'd be like, if I come out the front door and holler your name and you don't hear me, it's going to be on. And we would be diving. We'd be tucking and rolling, trying to get behind the bush. Because when she said we better be there, we had better have been there. We had better have been there. Yeah. Mama didn't play no games. We'd mess your whole grammar up. You had better have been in the house before she got there because the belt would come out and had been all over your back end. Yeah. Because down south we don't play. They just beat you all up and down the street. They don't even care. I don't care what the judge says. You're my child. I beat you all up and down this. We don't play no games down there. I'm telling you, y'all lucky. We'd have been, whew. So since I'm Southern, I bring it up here, and that's how I do my kids. I'm not joking. The second thing that he does in his attack is deception. Revelation 12:9 says that old serpent called the devil. Why did he call him a serpent? Because he was a serpent when he first initiated the fall of man. When he first initiated sin, his form was a serpent. He said that old serpent, the devil and Satan, which deceives the world. Look around in the world that you live in today. Look around and everybody has something negative to say. I am so sick up to beyond where I can reach with looking at people's negative nonsense on their social media issues. I don't like the president. I don't like the government. I don't like the country. Then move somewhere else. I don't care what your problem is. I don't care. There's plenty of things I don't like. You pray and you give it to God and you don't let the enemy take your joy and you don't let him have control over your world. You be the change that you want to see. I get so sick of people that never, this is not a political issue, but I just want to tell you this. It's my venting moment and I'm going to take it. My sermon, I'll preach it how I want to. I get so sick of people who don't vote and then have the nerve to come up to you and complain about something that they had no input in. Shut your mouth. That's what I say to them. Okay, moving on. That was for free, not even on my notes. I just wanted to give you a little something heart to heart, just from me to you, because I love you guys. The third part is destruction. Destruction. He's not just happy with you failing. He's not just happy with you falling. He wants you totally destroyed. And when does that start? That starts when you're young. Come here. Let me show you something. Come here, you. Come here. You're 16, right, Jake? Drake, come here. You're 12? Come here. Let me show you how the enemy gets you when you're young. Because Drake is super cool. Come over here. You're super cool. So you go stand over there, because that's where the cool people stand. Center stage, so everybody can see you. You stand over here because you're cool, but not as cool. Jacob, I need you to go stand over there for me, because you're probably the coolest one yet. Except for those pants. If I knew you was wearing those pants, woo, Jesus! Okay. Oh. I like your pants. Don't do that to him. Don't give him those pants. Let me tell you how it started for me. Corbin's 12. By the time I was 8, 9, 10 years old, I was stealing my mother's cigarettes. By the time I was 12, I was smoking weed. You were doing what? I know, I wasn't always a pastor. There was a past to the pastor, okay? I was doing bad things when I was 12. You can go sit down, handsome. By the time I got to Drake's age, boy, things was going crazy. I mean, my brother's right back there, and he can sit down and tell you the stories. He was 2 years younger than me, so I would go out, and my mother would always be like, if you're going, Tim's got to go. And I'd be like, I don't want Tim to go, and I had to bring him anyway. And in a lot of ways, I feel very responsible for the things that Tim has went through, because if it wasn't for me leading him down the wrong road, he wouldn't have been introduced to the things that he was introduced to, because by the time I was 14 and he was 12, I was doing much different things than what I started doing, and I drugged him right along with it, because I was selfish enough to not care about what my mother wanted, what my brother wanted, what was best for us. I was 16 and I knew everything, and I didn't need to know nobody's business. I didn't care what you had to say. I was the God of my own world. Right? You the God of your own world? There's another God, the actual God of your world. There's people like that man right over there that would give you anything. And there's people, I'm telling you now, to learn from mistakes of people that have walked through it. There is so much better than what we think we can have at 16. Go ahead. Thank you. How old are you? 20. Oh, my boy. Right? When we was married, that's what I was telling y'all. This is not me and you was married. We're not married. That'd be weird. But your pants are good, though, for that. I'm just joking. I'm just joking with you. I'm just joking. Listen, when we were 20 years old, we got married. And at that moment in my life, something shifted. And I started to see things in a different way. I was no longer 16. I was no longer 12. I wasn't where I started. I wasn't where I thought I was at my best. I was somewhere new now. And I had a wife now. And I was soon to have a child now. And I had to determine for myself, do I want to lead this family the way that I led my own life, or do I want to make a change? And I had to make the determination, because do you know why? I'm the man of the house. You're the man of the house. You know what that means? You face accountability for how you run your family. I have to be the pastor of my family before I can be the pastor of any church. I will stand in judgment for how I lead my family the same way I will be judged on how this church is run. So when I do things that people don't like, or she don't like, or the church don't like, understand I'm doing it for one reason, because I know that there is an accountability that will rest on me, and I have to do whatever it takes to make sure I'm leading in the right way. And when I was Jacob's age, I made the choice to transition my life off of one path or trajectory onto another path. She can explain that joke to you later. Thank you, Jacob. I appreciate it. Can you guys clap for them? I didn't plan to do that, but you guys were sitting there, looked so bored, I wanted to get you involved, And so the enemy says, Jesus said, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. He starts when you're young, and he continues to develop when you're in your teenage years. And if we don't get away from it, we get into our early 20s and we go to college, or we do what we do, and we find new addictions, and we find new things that will pull us away from God, and we get new hurts, and we get new issues, and things happen in our life, and we think, if God were real, then I wouldn't be going through this. Because he started the destruction early, and he just kept building. He just kept watching you crumble. He just kept watching you fall every single day into a lower and lower and lower existence than you were ever meant to be. And sometimes we find ourselves crawling across the broken glass on the floor of a room we should never be in, listening to doubts we should never be hearing, going through struggles we should never face, because we let ourselves live lower than God's standard for our life. We let ourselves live lower than what he's called us to live, and we let ourselves become everything that we think we should be, because we are in charge of our life. I know what's best for my life, but if we would just turn it over to God, we would see that there is greater things that we have not even imagined that could happen to our life. There is greater. I would have never guessed that I would be standing here sharing God's word with anybody. I would have never guessed that I would even leave South Florida. I would have never guessed that with the lifestyle that I'll share a little bit with you in a little while, but the lifestyle that we were accustomed to in our teenage years was something that most people don't make it to a very old age. But yet God had a plan for my life. And God had a promise to keep. Yeah. That he would do something in me. And I believe 100%. Do you know why? Because she had somebody praying for her. And my mother-in-law told me one day, I prayed for you before I even knew you. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, I prayed that whoever Chastity married would be a godly person. And you'd have to know the context of the conversation, because then she goes, and then you came in. Because when I came in, there was nothing godly about me. And she said, but I never stopped praying, because now I had a face to put with the prayer that I said since she was a child. And it's such a relief to know that there's somebody praying for you. And even if you don't think there's somebody praying for you, even if nobody ever tells you there's somebody praying for you, I guarantee you are connected to somebody that's praying for you. If you come into this church, I pray for you every week. I would like to tell you every day, but I'd be lying to you, and I'm not going to do that because I love you. But I pray for you on a multiple times a week basis because you are important to God, and that makes you automatically important to me.
Amen.
You are the created being in God's image, living on this earth, trying to find your way to your normal. And it's my job and my passion and my love to help you get to that place. And that's why I am here with you every single day. He comes to kill, steal, and destroy. But then Jesus continued. See, we stopped reading there but Jesus continued. He said, but don't worry because I have come that you may have life. And not just any life, but life more abundantly. So the struggles that you went through is just to get you to more life. The issues that you face is just to get you through more life. The loss that you went through is going to give you more life. The divorce that you had is going to give you more life. The kids that are acting like rebels is going to get you more life. Everything that you've gone through in your life is just to strengthen you and to build you because faith is formed in the fight. It's not finished in the fight. It's not ended in the fight. It's not killed in the fight. Faith is formed in your deepest, darkest fight. That's where your faith is grown. What do I have to do to reach this abundant life that Jesus talked about? Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. I will do whatever it takes. I will put down whatever you tell me to put down. I will leave whatever issue you want me to leave. I will walk away from whatever person you need me to walk away from. I will separate myself from whatever issue you want me to. I will do whatever it takes to find this abundant life. I'm sick of just floating through life wondering, what is my purpose? Where am I supposed to be? What am I doing? Do these people care about me? How could they have done this to me? How could I have walked through this much pain? How could I be so hurt? How could all this stuff happen? I'm sick of walking through life wondering, God, I will do whatever it takes to find something new in you. Nehemiah has seen the problem in his day, and it's broken his heart. Why don't we look at the broken walls of our world and it not shatter us? Why do we look at, I'm not trying to be any kind of political in this, but why do we look at the fact that it's okay for women to go and just have their baby pulled out of them because they choose that they're not killing a child, they're killing a purpose of God? I'm sorry if that's a little harsh, but that's important to me. Because what you need to understand is that I was supposed to be an abortion. My grandmother told my mother she would pay for it. And my other grandmother said, before you do it, go to the library. Back when there was libraries, that's a place that houses a lot of books and you could go and study. And it was before the internet. She said, go back to the library and study what that means. And she did. And she said she was so broken at the thought of it that she couldn't do it. And it's because of that that I am standing here today. So it's important to me. If we differ in that, that's okay. But it's important to me. What are we doing? The wall represents safety, security, structure, things that we need in our life. The ability to raise our children in a world where they can be safe and we don't have to worry about them when they go to school. When we lived in Fort Wayne before, Isaiah used to walk to the end of the road to the bus stop, and she would walk with him every day. And I said, why don't you just let them walk to the bus stop? She said, because I watched on the news and a parent was watching her kid at the bus stop and watched somebody roll up and snatch her kid and put him in the car and drive off with him. And she had to watch her son get abducted. So I will stand there with him. If somebody's going to take my baby, they're going to have a fight. And the problem is we've lost our fight. We don't have a fight no more. We don't have a fight for our families no more. We don't have a fight for our life no more. The enemy seems to have free access to our world. This book was written 423 years before Jesus ever hit the earth. And now here we are over 2,000 years later, and we're still seeing burning, broken, crumbled walls. Why aren't we rebuilding? Why aren't we doing something to make the world better? Why aren't we being the church that Jesus died for? Why is everything happening like this? Why aren't we broken for the things that break him? Our security has been torn down. The enemy seems to have free access to our world whenever he wants. He can come in and create chaos. He's perverted the hearts of people into every kind of issues. Pornography is the #1 selling thing on the earth right now. Because if he can make you seem like you're less than a person, if he can make you seem like you're an object, if he can make you seem like violent movies are the highest selling movies, because if he can take away the value of human life, then you have no issue when you see somebody getting mugged or raped on the street. You have no issue when you see things getting hurt. You have no issue when you see life being destroyed. You have no issue when you see a big campaign rally and everybody's shouting for the same thing. It hurts your heart because you know it's not right. It hurts your heart because you know it's not God's will. It hurts your heart, but yet we sit silent and we do not rebuild the bricks of the wall that God is trying to use. And I know building a wall in this day and age is real touchy, but understand we have to build some walls. We have got to build our walls. We have got to rebuild our walls. I'm not talking about a border with Mexico or Canada or the United or any other thing. I'm talking about rebuilding the walls of our spiritual life, rebuilding the walls of what God wants to do, rebuilding the walls of the things that the enemy has taken from us. It's time to take them back. He's taken us so far from our protector. He's taken us so far from God that when somebody even mentions God, even if you go to church on a regular basis, and then somebody says something, you say something about God, people go, oh no, that's not for me. Been there, done that, tried that, not my thing. Because we have been taken so far away from the God that loved us, that he's just a story to us anymore. He's just something that people used to do. Something that people used to live in. He's taken us so far from our protector. How do you know that? Well, modern day slavery is still existing. I'm not talking about Colin Kaepernick being an overpaid football player and being frustrated because of whatever social issues are going on. That's fine. That's his right. And he has the right to do what he needs to do. And I'm not saying nothing against that. What I'm talking about is modern day slavery. The fact that human trafficking is at the highest rate. And there are currently 4.5 million people suspected to be in human trafficking right now. That Libya is selling slaves out of their own country for $400 a person. That's less than my house payment. I could buy a person for that. When did the value of a human life go so low? I remember what a human life costs. It's not $400. Your life is not the cost of your failed marriage. It's not the cost of an addiction you can't recover from. The price of a human life is the same now as it was 2018 years ago when Jesus walked up the hill. According to 2 Timothy 2:6 in the New Living Translation, he gave his life to purchase freedom for everyone. Not just the people you like, not just the people you want to spend time with, not just the people that you agree with. He died for everybody. He died for the rich and the poor, the black and the white, the straight and the gay, everybody that you can think of. Jesus died for them. And he didn't die for them so they can live in less than the circumstances that they were created for. He died for them so they could get that abundant life that Jesus talked about. That is what a human life costs. Human life costs the sacrifice of a sinless Savior. He paid for us what no one else would. He paid for us what we could not pay for ourselves. Jesus did whatever it takes for whoever would take it. And we just let it sit there. We let it sit there. And we say, I'll go to you, Jesus, when I need it again. I'll go to you, Jesus, when I'm ready for you. We let it sit there. The walls of our world have fallen, and we need to desperately fix them, and we blame everything else in our life other than the issues. It's global warming. People are acting crazy because it's so hot. I looked on CNN and I saw North Pole wasn't as big as it used to be, and now I'm mad and I'm going to go shoot somebody. Okay. It's poverty. We do bad things to try to get out of our current situation. Been there, done that, never shot nobody, never got out, never helped me, never got out of any trouble, still lived in poverty. It's the government. The government is doing what they've always done. If it's frustrating you now, imagine what you would have thought 200 years ago when they were still doing the same stuff. It's Donald Trump's fault. Okay, one man is responsible for every problem in the history of the United States. No, it's not true with him. It's not true with Obama. It's not true with Bush. It's not true with Clinton. It's the fact that we are taking Jesus away from the people. We are taking Jesus out of the world. And the less they see Jesus, the more they see problems. Yeah. We can't focus on a God that we don't even know. We can't blame our way out of guilt. Blame will never lead to change. Blame will never lead to revival. We have to do whatever it takes. Let me get moving. Let me get past my intro. I wish I was lying to y'all. Bless his heart. It's not time to run away from our problems. It's time to rebuild. It's time to rebuild the broken walls in our life. It's time to rebuild the broken walls in our society. How do you build the broken walls? How do you build what's so broken in your life? I'm going to give you a couple ways out of this passage that I think we can do that. First of all, we build despite the haters. There's always going to be somebody in your life that hates what you're doing and hates the change that you're making. That doesn't want you to better yourself. That doesn't want you to be the best you can be. And they try to say things to keep you down, because if you're still down, then they can feel better about where they're at. And so every time you try to go to a new level, you got somebody holding on to your ankle to try to keep you in the level you've been at. And that's not what it's meant to be. There will always be somebody ready to stop your progress. Verse 1, when Sanballat heard that they were building the wall, he was furious, and he mocked the Jews. He mocked the Jews. Verse 2, will you revive the stones from the rubbish heaps? And then Tobiah, the Ammonite, whatever they build, even if a fox goes up it, it'll fall to the ground. They got no chance at rebuilding the broken wall. No chance. Our pastor one time, when I first started going to church, used this passage, and he did a message called Get Toby Out of the House. Because everybody's got a Tobiah in their house that's trying to keep them held back. And the goal was to get Toby out of your house. And I bet you if you look hard enough, you can find Toby in your house right now. You can find Toby in your life somewhere right now. We need to get him out of the house. We need to get him out of our life. We need to keep moving. David was brought to minister to Saul in 1 Samuel. Saul he was in a place where he was being tormented all the time, and music would calm him down. And so they said, not only do I have a good musician, but he's a great man of valor, and you need to go get David and bring him in here. And David would come in and he would play the harp for Saul. And David was a bad boy. He could play the harp like a champion, and he could fight, and he was a giant killer, and he brought him in, and he loved David at first. But then people started loving David. And the minute people start loving you over them is the minute you have an enemy now. Yep. The minute we come to Fort Wayne and we start a church, everybody's cool with it. But the minute the church starts growing, now we got enemies. The minute that people say you can do what you want to do, and then you do it and it starts being successful, now they want to hate. Yep. Oh yeah, you can go where you are. Yeah, you can go back to school, now you got your degree, and people want to mock you for it. Oh, you're going back to school at 44 years old? Doesn't matter. I'm doing my thing. Yep. It doesn't matter. We cannot live by what the haters say. We cannot let them stop us from what we got to do. We cannot let them tear our walls down. It got so bad for David that he had to run for his life from a man that he used to share the palace with, that he used to go to and make feel comfortable. And now David is running for his life, hiding in caves, just trying to keep his life one more day. And that's where David is. The second thing that you can do is you got to build prepared for the hassles in life. You got to build prepared for the hassles. If you try to build thinking there will be no issues, then you're always going to have issues. I work in a construction job right now, and there are times when we have a job set up and we go to the job and we can't get there because the painters haven't been done yet, and we can't do anything until they paint, and so we can't do the job. So it's a hassle to our building progress. It's a hassle to getting us done. It's a hassle to getting us where we need to be. And the problem is we find ourselves in all these hassles, and we focus on the issues instead of the issue made, the issue, the create, Did you call him up here early like that? According to my watch, I still got 2 more minutes before that's necessary, but you just do what you got to do. I appreciate you, and I will ignore you as a normal. No, I'm really, for real, almost done. We can't focus on the issues. We have to focus on God. We can't focus on the hassles. We have to focus on God. Verse 12 and 13 says, So it was when the Jews who dwelt near them came and told them 10 times, from wherever you look, they're always going to be coming. Wherever you look, they're always going to be attacking you. Anywhere you go, there's always going to be an enemy. So don't try to avoid it because it's always going to come. But they can't let that stop the progress. You have to still build even though there's an enemy. You have to build for the hassles. The building will continue, but you have to keep going. That's why Ephesians 6 talks about the armor of God. You have to put on the full armor of God, not just the pieces that you like. You have to put on the whole armor because you cannot get a full victory with partial armor. See, somebody should have put that on the Snapchat or the Twitter or something like that right there. You can't get a full victory wearing partial armor. You have to be ready to fully go to battle. You have to be ready to do everything that you got to do. It goes on to say in Ephesians 6 that having done all to stand, just stand there. If you don't gain no ground, at least don't lose no ground. You might be knocked down right now, but you're not knocked out. There is still a hope for you. There is still a new chance for you. There is still a new tomorrow for you. Don't let the defeat that you walk through be the defeat that ends you. You can get up from this. You can recover from this. You can beat this. One failure doesn't make you a failure. One defeat doesn't make you a loser. One pain doesn't make you hurt for the rest of your life. Eventually, you will learn to deal, and you will be able to use this as a ministry to help somebody else go through what you're going through. You might be knocked down now, but you're not knocked out. The problem with us is that we're good at building walls. We're just good at building the wrong walls. We're good at building walls to keep the wrong people in and keep the right people out. We're good at building walls to keep the pain in but keep the healing out. We're building the walls that we think are going to protect us instead of the walls that will actually protect us. So we can build walls, we just build bad walls. And the last thing is that you build with confidence of heaven. You build with the confidence of heaven. Verse 14. Do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord. Great and awesome. Great and awesome. Great and awesome. That describes your God. You are made in God's image, so that should describe you. Great and awesome. Victorious and not defeated. Above and not beneath. Head, not tail. You are everything that God is. You are made in God's image, and you have the ability to walk in God's authority if you take it. They knew that they could be victorious when they put the building in God's hands because He is the master builder. Because Psalm 127 says, unless the Lord builds the house, it is built in vain. And He was the master builder, but He's also the master in battle because Exodus 14, Moses tells the children of Israel, the Lord will fight for you. You just have to be still. What does that mean? It means be still and rest in the fact that God has got your back. You're knocked down now, but it's not over. We will keep moving forward. We will keep progressing. We will keep doing better. We will keep getting more as long as we let God build the walls and we build the right walls in the right way. You were created to fight, but you were not created to fight alone. Rest in Him. Now I asked my brother to come. His son is sick and he did me a favor and he came. I have a picture to show you if you want to flip to the next thing. There it is. Look at them G's right there. Wow. Them boys. G's, boy. That was the day we got married. That's my wedding attire right there. Yep. I look a little different, a little skinnier, fresh off an addiction. He forgot how to smile. And that is the last time I saw my favorite hat, by the way. But them boys was bad back in the day. Yeah. You want to talk about it, Drake? There it is right there. That boy was bad. Oh, yeah. And I asked him would he come because I wanted to share something with you, but I thought it would be a lot more impactful if he was here. See, that was us. Again, I was 20. He would have been 18 or so. I think he's somewhere like 2 years behind me. And it's been a rough road. All that God has brought him through, that He has brought us through, but he has gone through so much more than me. I can sit here and tell you my own stories, but I wanted to relive his stories, and I told him that I know it's his, but he's my brother, and there was a time when we were always together. That's what you always seen. If you got one, you got both of us. In fact, they used to call us Cain and Abel back in the day because we were always together. If you tried one of us, you got both of us. and everybody else that was with us too. But we were always together, so anything that happened to me was happening to him, and anything that happened to him is affecting me. And at this moment in my life, I decided that I was going to start following Jesus. And it changed everything. It'd been a rough road. But see, he's still here. He's right back here. I'm going to have him come walk with me in a minute. Matter of fact, you can come up here and walk with me now. Yeah, come on. I'm going to show you something. I got some stuff that I have to read, so I'm going to hold on to this, but not this. I know this. So this is Tim. Everybody say hi to Tim. Hi, Tim. So if you hear me say my other brother, this is the one I'm talking about, because y'all know Josh. This is Tim. Okay? See, I was almost an abortion, but he was almost an adoption. And the people were already ready to take him home from the hospital. And he was born real premature. He doesn't look like it now because he's a healthy man now. But boy, he was small when he was born. He could fit in your hands like this, my mother said. It's all right. No, that picture's dope. Born very premature. But after he was born and he started growing, he had to have surgery. You can walk with me. Come on and walk with me. We're walking through the journey of life. We're going to come over here. He had to have surgery. Don't walk in front of me. I'm doing my thing. He had to have surgery because his inside wasn't working right. And the doctor said he may or may not live through the surgery, but so planned for the worst. But he made it. He came out. Here he is. He obviously wasn't adopted because the people came in, they had the nursery all done, they were ready to take him, and they seen him, he was born, and they seen me, and they said, your other son is so well behaved, I can't take your son from you, I want you to keep him, and I want you to raise them together. And here we are, together, right here. First time we've lived this close since we was teenagers, or early 20s. He went to middle school, and again, because of the life that we was messing with, is some people, we like, like the big, back when we were in middle school and stuff, in high school, everybody was wearing like the rap label chain, so like I had a big old No Limit Soldier, so I had a No Limit tank, and he had the bad boy thing, and he fell asleep at school one time, and this girl came and took his bad boy chain from him, and for her boyfriend, who for some reason was like out of high school, and she's like in 8th grade, and I don't know how that's legal, but that's what it was, and so he wanted his chain back, and he got his chain back, and he drilled the dude when he got his chain back. And then he saw him at the place, and he said, let's go around back. The guy told my brother, let's go around back and finish this out. And they scrapped it out. My brother was doing his thing, and then the guy fell, and when he went over there to go finish the deal, the other dude he was with tripped him, and he got up and he stabbed him an 1.25 inches into his back. Ruined my favorite Nike shirt, man. I mean, you're good. Well, I knew you were okay, but my Nike shirt was done. He killed it. He killed it. But he got through it. He got through it. It's a soldier right here. I had a Cadillac. You guys know my love for Cadillacs. Come on, we're over here now. We're adults now. I had a Cadillac, and I think I gave it to him. If I didn't give it to him, I sold it to him for like real cheap, but I think I gave it to him. And I'll tell you what, now I look back and I know I gave him that Cadillac so somebody can give me a Cadillac now. So if you got one and you're ready to give it up. Without the payment book. But now Tim I'm telling his business, and I hope it's okay, but I think he would share this with you personally, so I told him I was going to do it yesterday. But he was doing some stuff maybe he shouldn't have been doing, and somebody decided they were going to come out and try to stop him, and so they shot the gun a bunch of times at the Cadillac, and all the bullets went through the door except which one? The driver's side door. The only bullet that didn't go through the car was the one where he was sitting. God kept him safe. What are you going to do, God? Whatever it takes! And then we were up here, we were serving at youth pastors. It was after church on a Wednesday, and I got a call, and it was I don't even remember who it was, but I got a call. Oh, it was Josh called Chastity. Good thing she's here for historical accuracy. And he said, Tim was shot! Not the Cadillac! Tim was shot! Right in his chest. They flew him to the hospital. Died a couple times. But look, he's still here! Right Right here. Right here. So you guys that think it's cool to be, I don't know if you do or not, but people your age that think it's cool to be gangsters, is it cool to get shot? Is it cool to die in the helicopter? No. It's all right, you're good. Stay right there. It's not cool to live the way you think you want to live when God has a purpose for your life. And I asked him when he comes so I can share this stuff with you guys. And I don't believe that he kept them through it all for an accident. I believe that it was because there's a purpose in his life that's so great. That God is going to do something so great in his life. That God is going to use him to free people that are bound. To see people set free that are trapped. To see people come and do things with their life. Now look at what he's done. He's done graduating, got himself a bachelor's degree. He's got himself a family. He's got himself some kids. They told him he's never had kids. He's got a little baby at home right now that's sick. Tell me, what are you going to do, God? Whatever it takes. You can go sit down. Whatever it takes. You don't understand how much that means to me that he was here for that, because I bet that was real hard for him. What you go through in life is only going to beat you if you let it beat you. That's a proof right there. Failed marriages, your children can't code right because you don't know what to do with them, and people are in trouble all the time. You will beat it if you choose to beat it. Revelation 12:11 says they overcame him, Satan, because of the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. In my heart, I can hear a conversation between God and Jesus. I'm going to share that conversation with you and we're going to close. I believe it sounded something like this. God looked at Jesus and said, "They done it again. Them dummies." No, you don't really talk like that. "The people did it again, Jesus." And Jesus looked at him and said, "They're weak, Father. They're weak." And God said, "I thought the flood would work. It didn't. They've forgotten all about the miracles when I took them out of Egypt. Now look at them. I've had enough. It's time for judgment." But if you're familiar with your Bible, you'll read that Jesus waits so that none perish, but all come to repentance. So Jesus looks at his Father and says, "Give them time. We can fix this. This isn't what they were created to be. You know that. You made them. You just have to see them. They have to see themselves as we see them. Not as fallen people. Not as sinful people. They have to see themselves like we see them." God said, "No, they've had enough chances. It's too late. They can't pay for this." And Jesus looked up at him and said, "No, you're right. But I can." And I think God was a little shocked when he looked at his son and he said, "What are you suggesting?" And Jesus said, "I'll pay for him. I'll pay for him." God said, "You know that'll be a high price, right?" And Jesus said, "Yeah, I do." And God said, "So what are you going to do, Jesus?" And he said, "I'm going to do whatever it takes." And a perfect God hit the womb of a virgin girl, which sounds real nice at Christmas time, but what about every other day of the year? And he was born and he grew just like we grew, and he was tempted just like we're tempted, and he knew everything. He's gone through what we've gone through. It might have looked different in his day, but he was tempted with the same stuff. And he lived 33 years sinlessly, preparing himself for 3 years of ministry. 3 years of one man's ministry is talked about thousands of years later. If he was just another cult leader, this book would be worthless and it wouldn't even be the #1 selling book in the world forever. You want to talk about the New York Times bestsellers list? I think he's beat it. What are you going to do, Jesus? I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to live sinlessly for them. So that when they go out and they do the things that they're not supposed to do, as long as they come and find the sacrifice that I gave, as long as they identify with the ransom that I paid, that you will not see what they've done or what they are or what they've been, but that you will see me. He said, if you want to do it, you can do it. And Jesus hung there, trying to breathe, searching for every breath, pushing on the nails in his feet just to get a little bit of relief from suffocating to death. So that in 2003, 2002-ish, Jonathan could live in that conversation that he had with God, and I could say, God, I need a change. I need you to fix me. I don't want to be beat down. I don't want to be broken. I want to give it to you. It's going to be hard. I'll do whatever it takes. And so I want to say here to you today, we all have a choice. Are you going to just keep doing what you're doing, or are you going to do whatever it takes? Whatever it takes to be the best that you can be. Whatever it takes to live a life for God that you never thought you could live. Whatever it takes to be unashamed. Whatever it takes to see your whole world changed for Jesus. Whatever it takes to get past your pain. Whatever it takes to get past your hurt. Whatever it takes. First thing it takes is Jesus. Because without the covering of Jesus, all God sees is your own flaws and sin. All God sees is my own flaws and sin. And I'm a great sinner. But He's a great Savior. Would you pray with me? God, I thank you for our time together. I thank you, God, that you would let us hear from you today. I thank you, God, that we would get a glimpse of what you have for us, a glimpse of eternity. I thank you, God, that we can identify with the ransom that you paid for us. God, I ask that you would speak to hearts, that you would bring people who have walked away from you back, that you would bring people who think they got it all under control back, that you would let us know that we are not in control of our life. We're in control of a portion of what you gave us, but you are in control of everything. You are in control of eternity. You are in control of hurts and pains and struggles and sorrows.